Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher here at Sweetwater Sound. Today we're going to do something a little different. Over the years, as I've demonstrated guitar sounds on various keyboards, we get emails from people saying, how do you do that? Or what are the tricks you use to do that? And I definitely have a bag of tricks that make the guitar sound more realistic. Now understand, I'm not a burning keyboard player. I'm no Jordan Rudess. I'm no Derek Sherinian. I'm not even a Jacob Dupre. But I am pretty good at simulating non-keyboard instruments on a keyboard. I've been doing it for a long time. And the thing about the guitar tricks are it's definitely learnable. So the stuff I show you, if you practice it, you can do them just as well as I can. And you don't need to be a burning player. A lot of times you just need simple acoustic parts or simple comping parts or even simple lead parts at the right moment. And then as you get better at them, then you can go and try and burn on them as well. So today I'm using the Yamaha MODX, which is a beautiful new synth. It's basically a slight reduction of the Yamaha Montage. So it has the AWM2 with the built-in samples of all the instruments. Plus it also does FM, which it can be really great for guitars. And so the way I'm going to get to guitars is I'm hitting the category button, and then I'm hitting guitar, and then I'm going to hit acoustic, and I'll start with 6-string finger. So here's my first tip, and that is you have to learn the 6 notes of an open guitar. It's E, A, D, G, B, E. And you need to be able to use velocity at all velocities. You can't just slam down. You have to be able to hit it as soft as you can, all the way up. Because there's a lot of variation in there that guitarists use all the time. So first, my thing is with 2 hands, just be able to, and then there's a way of sweeping those from left to right. So try to imagine an acoustic guitar sitting in a stand and you're just walking by it and you just drag your hand across it, either high to low or low to high. And you should be able to do that on keys, and it should, in your mind, you should just be able to hear that you've just walked past an acoustic guitar and strummed it. So it's like this. Or down. And it seems easy, but every time I have someone try it, it doesn't sound right. But just keep doing it. And so it'll not only get you used to the touch of it, but it'll train you those 6 notes. And this is really important. Why? Because on an acoustic guitar, after you have all your open notes, none of those notes on that string can go lower because it's already open, right? So when you need to figure out, is this a legal guitar chord? Is this a guitar chord that could really be done on a guitar? One of the tricks is you start with those 6 notes, and you know that your notes can only go upward. So let's say I want to do a G chord. So I do those 6 notes, and the E can go up to a G. The A can go up to a B. The D can stay. The G can stay. The B can stay. But the E cannot come down to a D, so it's got to go up here. And so even as I'm playing it, that sounds right. And it just takes a little while to get that, and then after you get it, you can break all the rules you want. As long as you mostly try to do that, it's going to sound convincing, and it also kind of teaches you how to just spread guitar notes open. Another thing is that a lot of times multiple notes in a guitar chord or in a phrase tend to move together in parallel because you're sliding your hand upward or downward, and then you may have some strings that are open. So some strings stay still, other strings move. So here, for example, here's a G chord, and I'm going to just move some of the inner notes in parallel. And you also want to try and do these little pickup notes, grace notes. And little diddly-doos. And you'll notice that every time I play, I'm very rarely, and as a keyboard player, you definitely don't want to do closed block chords all the time. Okay, you got to get out of that habit. And you don't have to use all 6 notes at the same time. So, like in a jazz world, a lot of times you just want the 3rd, the flat 7, and then maybe a tension like a 9, because the bass player's got your root and he probably has your 5. So for example, if I were to play a G, instead of playing what I call a baby chord, you know, a G, I might lower the G to a F for the flat 7, keep my 3rd, but then maybe do a 13. And those things move chromatically really well. And another neat thing about that chord is that when you play a different bass, like the tritone, it sounds right. And the 3 notes is definitely a better guitar sound than always hitting all 6 strings. So the next trick in my bag of guitar tricks is bending. And you have to understand that on an acoustic guitar, it's very difficult to bend downward. I mean, you can do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. There are very few acoustic guitars with whammy bars on it. So it's possible you can bend a string upward, then pluck it, then bend down. It's a little more difficult and it isn't used as much. So when doing acoustic, it's mostly bending upward. And on all bends for guitars, one of the mental tricks to do is you have to imagine the pitch wheel being much more rigid than it actually is. Like, you have to imagine that you're pushing against a string. It kind of shapes the curve of how you go up and how you come back down. It's easier to come back down. It's a little harder to go up, right? And another thing is vibrato. And you can use the mod wheel, obviously, but it completely kills the reality of it being a guitar, because who can do polyphonic vibrato on a guitar like that? And so it's much better to use the pitch wheel if you can. The problem, though, is that most pitch wheels have a dead spot in the middle, so that when the spring brings them back to the center, it's always perfectly in tune. And if you listen, you can hear. You hear it kind of stopped in the middle, and that's exactly where you want to do the vibratos. So one of the tricks is to bring the vibrato up just a little bit, or bring the pitch wheel up just a little bit more, and then up there you can do the vibrato, and it's only a little bit sharper, and it's not noticeable. All right, so now I'm going to do a couple of songs and phrases. I'm not trying to exactly mimic a song, so don't write me if I get something not like some song you know or something, but you probably recognize this one. Another style you can do with acoustic guitar is a flamenco style. And the secret to that is just learning the scale. I'm going to do it in E, and it's basically an E major scale that has a flat 2 and a flat 6 and a flat 7. Simple way to remember that, it's all white keys except for the G sharp. It's like this. And when you play a chord, like the E chord, always add that flat 2 in there like this. Another acoustic style is 12 string, and the trick for that is pretty simple. Just don't get too complicated. It's harder to play a 12-string guitar because of all the extra strings and the extra tension. So simple patterns. The trick that I use to get in the mental frame of mind to play 12-string is this song. So another style is pedal steel guitar. I don't have a pedal steel patch handy, but I'll just use a clean picked guitar, and if you have a pedal steel sound, it will definitely sound even better. But the trick on that is all in the bending and keeping it simple, and you basically want to do what they call like the guide tones of the chord. So in other words, like simple lines that fall throughout the chords, simple lines that bend into the notes. One of the chords that I use to kind of get in the frame of mind for pedal steel is a 6th chord. So like a C chord would be C, E, G, and then a 6th chord adds the A. And if you invert that, 1, so you get that, and you just keep inverting. A lot of thirds, and now, because you're on a slider, you can bend from underneath very easily. So I've already talked about some of the jazz chords you can do, but now I'm going to actually use a jazz guitar sound. And again, those 3-note chords, we got a flat 7, 3rd, 13, like this. If I'm in B flat, I'll do an A flat, a D, and a G. And on jazz guitar, I don't flam as slowly. I flam a little faster, but you still got to flam. And listen to it without. It's just not the same. Another trick is octaves, and so if you're hitting octaves, you're going to hit the lower one first, so just a slight preceding of the lower note. So here's a clean electric guitar. It's good for riffs and picking little complicated patterns. Here's a couple of songs that I tend to do with those. And that's a real common thing, the 1, 5, 8, the root, the 5th, the octave. And then you bounce it, and then you alternate the 5th and the 6th. Sometimes you go up to the flat 7. And that's really useful for the hard distortion as well. We'll get to that. You can also use this sound for the tricky riff songs like again, the spread is the important part. You know, you really want to not have close voicings. All right, so now we move on to the distorted guitar. And there are lots of variations of distortion, and probably of all the things that have gotten better in keyboards over the years, the distortions have gotten way better, making it much, much easier to do distorted guitar. And the trick to that is keep it simple. 1, 5, 8, 1, 4, 8. You know, try not to do a lot of close clusters unless there's a certain song that needs that, but usually it's just, and again on the whammy bar. But now, unlike the bend ups that I've been doing before, and we'll still do those, but now think about the whammy bar where you're pushing on a spring that pushes the string down, and just try and have that in your mind and get this. And There are other very cool things that they add. Here's one that has wah-wah pedal in the mod wheel. And a lot of times as you're bending up, you're also opening the wah, which is pretty convenient for the wheels. But don't do that all the time or it'll get kind of obvious. So I'm going to pick a different distortion here. This one has some feedbacker tricks in it. Basically, as your strings are feeding back into an amp, sometimes the feedback note is not the root, but like an octave or an octave and a fifth. And so they simulate that in this. It's just a matter of holding the notes and remember to keep that whammy bar not predictable, kind of have a human feel to it, right? So you got that. And notice how when you change your middle note from the fifth to the fourth, it like completely brings the chord to a different place, even though two of the notes are the same and the other has only moved one whole step. So one of the very first guitar lead riffs that I learned when I was in Germany. I was stationed in the Army and my roommate was a guitar player, and I said, show me like all your riffs and I'm going to learn them. So the very first one he showed me was this. You hit a note, you play the note a whole step below it, and you bend back up to the original note and then let go. And it's like this. And in your mind, the rhythm is da-dicka, 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 da-dicka. And it looks easy, but wait till you try it. It takes a long time to get that to feel natural at any tempo. Another one is a scoop and then like a six or something. Another one are thirds. Here's another one. You start on the fifth, you bend a half step down, then you go to the root. And when you're trying to simulate a whammy bar, obviously you can go way farther than a whole step down. You can go till the strings flop against your fretboard. So if you have a synth that can have a different pitch bend up and a different pitch bend down depth, go a whole step up and come an octave down. We'll start with that one. So now you can do this. Because your downward bend is so much more powerful, you have to learn to just do a slight thing, and you're imagining hitting the whammy bar with your arm, and it's... And if you're only going down an octave, you don't want to stop hard because it's very obvious it's a pitch bend wheel. You want to kind of let go as you're falling away. Sounds a little more realistic. And when you finish a phrase, you can kind of just, makes a pretty realistic, right? So you're like, so sometimes you use the foot controller instead of the mod wheel for wah-wahs and other things. And I could tell that on this patch because it says Octave Fuzz Pedal Wah FC2. That's telling me to plug into foot control input 2. Foot control input 1 is usually volume. I'm using the Yamaha FC7 pedal, and let's see what that sounds like. And then some synths have various other guitar tricks to include like a whole set of just wah-wah, and every key has a different one, and you could just randomly hit keys. And a lot of times after you get your techniques down, just throwing your hands with abandon at the keyboard sometimes just has really good results, kind of surprising. But one of the tricks that's very neat on this one is that they have these two-handed guitar parts where each hand is doing the same octave, but it lets you do very fast chugs, right? And if you do velocity slightly different, you can get So I hope it gave you some food for thought on creating guitar styles, both acoustic and electric. If you have any questions about the Yamaha MODX or any other keyboards, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. If you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. My name is Daniel Fisher. Thank you very much for watching.